You're gonna want to sit down for this one, bro. This is one of the greatest videos I've ever made. One of them. I've done some great things over my time, but you guys are like, oh, you really think you understand what it meant when it said accretion, layers? Well, you get to see right here. Look. You see how it's working? I mean, they're advanced, right? Like, just like we are so-called advanced, right? At least they didn't destroy the planet building this thing. Put this thing out real quick so I can talk to you while I'm not smoking, so you can hear me clearly. Okay, so what you're seeing right here is them building the pyramids, right? But what's different? They're not using stones, right? They're not dragging stones up. We don't do that today. Why would we expect them to, right? That's why there were no gaps. That's why everything's so perfect looking, right? It's called cement. You know, the same thing we use, they were using. Only difference, it was made out of mud. Just to get right to it. Try not to waste your time. It was made out of mud, and also the difference in Egypt is they used limestone. There's a couple of ways this could have happened, right? Either they built it like this, or you know what actually happens in Egypt all the time? They get floods all the time. Remember the mud flood and Tartaria and all that stuff? Well, Tartaria, that's like kind of Russia, that kind of area, that's it. Like, not actually Russia. It's, excuse me. It was actually like Middle Asia, like where the monks and stuff are. Like where Tibet is. It's like over there. So they're probably Asiatic people, not white people. But it expanded a pretty good amount of distance, so it might have included, you know, because, you know, Caucasian and Asian, you know, it's like the same. They're very similar people. Both kind of got alien DNA and stuff like that compared to the monkey people that we got on the planet. That's most of us. Most of us are monkey people, you know. I'm clearly part monkey person, I'm sure. There's no way. Like, all my relatives, so many of my ancient relatives, you know, they're colored people, so. But anyway, so there's this, and then I don't know how I got all talking about that, but yeah. Oh yeah, Tartars. Like, I want to make a whole nother video on it. It's just this ancient cultures and stuff, you know. Rome, like, basically shut a lot of that down. Like, a lot of, you'd be amazed. But it was not even just Rome, it was literally the Gutians. Like, they started in Sumeria, they went there to another place, just these cavemen and stuff like that. But yeah, to get to the point, the other way this could have happened is through natural, like, pressure. Like, I already asked AI because I understand it. I kept asking the questions. At first I was thinking it was sandstone, because remember, accretion has to do with gravity. Like the Earth's gravity, you know, we know it's not like they say, you know, it's like electromagnetic and stuff like that with potentials and stuff causing the gravitational effect that we consider weight. But, you know, regular gravity, it doesn't explain why things float up. You know, only buoyancy and electromagnetic potentials and stuff like that, or acceleration, explain that. Because, you know, there's a lot more voltage up there, and, you know, it's got to do with simply it weighs less. You know, gravity pulls, it doesn't just rise, it pulls. You see what I mean? It doesn't make things rise, you know. Even at a microgravity level, you know, we have things like orbits of the moon, and eventually the moon will crash into us because of microgravity. You know, it's just, you know, like the way they explain it is not really proper, you know, because gravity only pulls, it doesn't make things rise. But electrostatic potentials do, you know. But so this is what the accretion gravity effect was. I looked at my video and I saw where I was making so many mistakes. I want to delete the video now. I think I will, because this is just so much more effective, you know. I'll probably leave it up for y'all, just so you can, you know, see where I'm coming from in the process, in my learning process. But when it was talking about accretion, it was talking about just accretion in general, because it happens natural in the plant. And this is why on Earth you see they're talking about pyramids design, because like even the structure of itself is like a creation factor, you know, because it's like kind of like, you know, it's getting narrower and narrower, kind of pointing inward, you see. But it also happens in nature, you see. And this is why the deeper under the earth you go, because of the huge amount of pressure, you get things like diamonds that would have to fuse normally under billions of years, you know. But because of the pressure, like sped up time, just like with the pyramids. They don't tell you the pyramids, unlike all the other pyramids on the planet, that are all made out of mud. They're all made out of mud. Let me see, what pyramids is. What are the pyramids of South America made out of? In America, I started with that because they said the ones in South are different. No, they're not. They're all made out of mud. The pyramids in South America do not share the same construction techniques as their northern neighbors. Brazilian shell mounds aside, most pyramids in the southern continent are made of clay brick. Oh, so this is just all of them in general. What about the central ones, right? Pyramids. It's basically everywhere, because I'm saying, like, okay, let's go Central America. I'll just put in China next, because I want to see. It's just mud. That's what they all do. Mud, you see? And the AI's main excuse against it being made out of mud until I knew how to speak its proper language of pressure and stuff like that. Once I told it with pressure could a mud pyramid, you know, and it was like, yeah, that's actually what this one guy was saying. That's what it actually is. And people are just somehow not getting it because it's like it's too new for them. I figured that out on my own. And I was like, okay, so, because I was thinking it was sandstone. Because sandstone, you know, dirt is organic and will never be sand, you see? So for there to be the sand over by Egypt, it means it had to have been like an ocean, you know what I mean? It should never have been like this. It had to have been submerged at some point, you know what I mean? Because under the ocean you get what? And at the ocean you get what? At the beach, sand, you see? I'm too smart for you people, bro. And that's why I'm feeling like Joy Boy Luffy right now. It's like the boost is crazy. Boost is crazy, man. When you bless the gods, the way you get your power back, tenfold more than you can handle, you know, it just feels really good. Most pleasant, kind of lighthearted feeling you can imagine. The devil will try and interrupt it, but it's so much stronger than it used to be. It's hard to interrupt. It really is. It's so stable. But anyway, so dirt is organic soil. It will never be sand. Sand is washed ground stones, gradually back and forth by what? By what? The sea. The nothing. Oh, Egypt was never submerged. Those flood stories are a lie. It's just all the ancient society, you know, ancient cultures talk about this flood. All China, Sumerian, Bible, basically Sumerian, Shemitic type of stuff. You know, the Americans, they got one, like everybody on the planet, you know. So it was real, you know. But they still want to hold on to their bullcrap, their cult of Marduk. a false understanding of real history. I'm gonna get to that in a minute, which is gonna be the more complicated thing. Is now that I understand this, it's easier to explain the pyramids to you. It's a mud, concrete type of thing they make, and then it dries, and then it's hard as stone. You know, that's all it is. Sun dried. That's what they say. The sun dried mud brick. You see, they use the sun to dry it. They was like, in order to do this, you'd have to burn so much wood. They would have had to use the whole forest. No, dumbass. It's a really hot area. It's called use the free energy device called the sun. You know, a god, unlike, you know, your atheistic bullshit that doesn't do nothing. You know, but waste the power of a god. Oh, so if you're a god, where did all this stuff on earth come from? Besides the god of the earth and the god of the sky and all that and the air. So if you're a god, where did the air come from, right? Yeah. Try creating without any of the shit God already created, right? Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Without the code he created. Make your own code. Yeah. Digital biology based on his code. You don't even do it right. Because you're lacking the spiritual essence of it. The divine connection between man and God. Was it man first or God first? No, it's both, right? God's immediately created man to empower them through the things they create. There's a type of addition for the gods, and also their worship and all that type of stuff. And then on top of that, man would get the blessing of the gods, which stuff they can't do. It's a mutual power. And I remember that's how I first, became the elect one, the Son of Man, right? God, I knew what I put out would come back to me, right? Karma, right? That's the true power. That's the true, the wife of God, the true primordial. That could be anything, right? But I just so happened to focus mine on God, right? And I knew He'd give me back what I put out. So I just was like loving God, which I consider worship. It's just love, And, God loved me back and made me into the greatest there ever was. What they call, I don't want to call it a goat, but greatest. I call myself a ram, fully developed sheep. And it's no longer a sheep, it's just rams, the motherfuckers. Anyway, so. What's this? Some kind of random alert in my area. Isn't that funny? See how that works? Guys, info and lines. You turn that alert off real quick. And someone text message me. These fuckers just don't want y'all to hear this truth, man. I'm not no fool. This little animal shit don't disturb me. So they're all made out of mud. It's not just there. It's all of America, right? I already showed you the South. Now I can go straight to China, because the other major places in China, they don't want you to see it though. They changed it. This is not what I got when I put this in China before. What are the pyramids that China made of? This is hilarious. They literally changed this on the fly. Rammed earth. This is so hilarious, man. Look, this is what they normally showed on the first result. The Chinese pyramids of that region are built of mud and dirt. They're more like the mounds than the pyramids. The only difference is in Egypt, they put a little bit of limestone mixed into it. That's it. And I proved that to you there. I already explained this. The AI even knows about it. It's hilarious. Because it's like these certain things you only get with a type of cement structure. It's like these little bubbles and stuff that you get. Man, they try to say rammed earth. You know what? You You can hold on to that, buddy. If someone's dumb enough to fall for that, like, not see what I just showed them, that it's mud, you know, same crap everybody else is doing. You know, and that's what you know they were building stuff with back then. It's basically mud huts and stuff like that, yeah. And then even sandstone, under enough pressure, like if it was submerged under a flood, it becomes, what is it, limestone, which the pyramids have an outer lacing of. Sometimes they're fully made out of. Even that theory is possible, or more realistically, it was mud. More obviously, it was mud. It's the same as everybody else, but they mixed the lime into it. I'll get to it in a second. What was I showing in this one? Oh yeah. In the earliest parts, it was fully stone. So what was something that's underwater, right? What would it end up? You know, if it was, or over time, you know, and it gets flooded over and over again like Egypt does by the Nile, it would start to become more like stone, you see, the longer it's been around. The ones that have been around the longest were probably around when the flood actually occurred, you know, because all these are really temples to the gods. All ones in America, all temples to the gods, man. That's all they are. I was absolutely right. That's why the Native Americans had them too. Expected to become gods in the afterlife. Prepare for the next one. They erected temples to the gods. You see? Even in Egypt, the Americans did it too. You already know, like, they would even sacrifice people to these guys in Aztec, you know, because they might have been worshiping the reptilians or something. Because remember, it was first they were worshiping the gods, the humanoid ones, right? At least that's how they depict them. And then it was these reptilians later on. That's when it was Babylon and all this fallen stuff and underworld and all that crap. And they tried to overflow the people. So in all the so-called mythologies, all the histories all over the world, that there were the gods fighting these monsters and stuff. I told you that's why they created the cities. It's to be a refuge against the monsters. You know, and the other version of Genesis, there's monsters and stuff like that. And that's why I kept telling you, it's the same people that made Samaria. They made these pyramids and stuff like that. That's why it's in the same area. And they call themselves the civilized kings, you know. These were temples to the gods. I told you, that's all they are, you know. So who's been all about the gods since the beginning? The Semitic people, right? So you already know that's why most of the people are Arab looking in the pictures. You know, Arabs can be very dark. They can be dark brown, like kind of reddish, like how they show most of the Egyptians looking. You know, and then they can be lighter complected. But there were also people from all different nationalities coming there, having fun. You know, it's a Mecca, just like Saudi Arabia is today. And what was Saudi Arabia? That's actually the place where the Sumerians said when Noah landed that he started his kingdom, and it would be blessed and he would actually live forever. And what was he actually? He was a high priest, the king. You see, that's who the real king is, and that's why I'm king. But now they want to put these little beasties up on the top, you know, and then have us waste our time trying to hold things together for people that really don't deserve anything. You see, that's why God said, "Come out of Babylon. She's fallen." It's not Sumeria anymore. It's Babylon. See, I'll explain that. It's a big part of this pyramid stuff, man. Because people like to try and act like they built it. When it's simple mud stuff, man. Go build this crap right now. That's why I called it accretion layers. Remember? This has to do with gravity, the Earth's natural gravity. A massive object by gravitationally attracting more matter. It just happens naturally. Really underestimate the power of natural observation and willpower to be able to build that. But they only understand that creation and gravity are connected. I showed you in the part 1 of this. See? Because they're like a robot. They're not really seeing the full picture. They're not connecting the dots. Not like I can, that's for damn sure. Not like my people can. Most pyramids in North America were constructed layers. Oh, I'm showing you how they were made, by the way, just to prove it to you. Most pyramids in North America were constructed with layers of shaped what? Compacted what? Soil, mud. And then Egypt kept getting flooded by Ethiopia's water. If it wasn't for the water that was overflowing from Ethiopia, you know, the people of God, you know, the Shemitic people, you call them Arabs or whatever, but the Shemitic people. That's why they have people of dark complexion, a little lighter, and they look really good. It's because they were never conquered. They didn't get conquered by, you know, the invading forces. So that's why they're Christian. They believe in the Bible still. They know who they really are, you see. That's why God said he made you as the Ethiopian. Duh. Even though they even say Africa, the whole Africa used to be called Ethiopia, right? So why would God move anywhere far from the Nile River when the Garden of Eden is right at the Nile River? So God is close to the Nile River, you see. That's why all this starts right here. You see, it's not complicated. You just gotta read in between the lines and find the truth. It's not complicated. And the only people that make it complicated are people that flat out lie to you. And if you're dumb enough to not know the truth foundationally, well, you're gonna get fooled. To prepare for the next world, they erected temples to the gods. The mud, there's something I wanted to do with that. Layers compacted soil, structure was span. Only a handful of moss for the structures. Others, more complex pyramids, will require more time, as they were using other materials than the soil. Oh yeah, I remember I wanted to talk about how they get flooded over and over. And it's because of Ethiopia. It's like a blessing. They look at it as a blessing. Because there would be no life there if it wasn't for Ethiopia. That's why the flooding of the Nile is biblical. Because it connects to my people and stuff. Yeah, so, and the gods and all that. So, Ethiopia floods, the mud. I just saw about this in the Kemetic group I'm a part of too. Flood, and this is how the other part could have been. This is the other way the pyramids could have been built. From all that flooding, they basically admit that's how they built it. It's like, for example, under the pressure of all that flooding, you know, like the mud flooding that happened all over the world, for example, you get enough pressure, then you get limestone, right? And then they can carve that out and make some of the more unique pyramids. That's another way they could have done it. But they didn't find that it worked that way. They found bubbles and stuff. It had to have been like a concrete. Flood Egypt over and over through the Nile. It's still happening. It just happened again. You see? It's still happening. You see? Let's go ancient though. Because I was looking up their flood stories. You see, precipitations on the Ethiopian highlands, whose summits reach the heights of heaven. You see, let's look at it a little bit deeper, in case you haven't heard. And your natural cycle, see? Since ancient times. And they celebrate it because otherwise there'd be no water there, you see? Just like the Bible said, these people you call invaders are the people literally that built the cities. That's why they were able to naturally fight off the enemy, Rome, and retake it. Who's been fighting and holding the ground against Rome this whole time when they tried to crusade all through Africa and all through the Shemitic areas? The Shemitic people. They're the only reason that they stopped them. If it wasn't for them stopping them and eating up all their resources, the rest of y'all would be free fucking money. You'd be free fucking money. To this fucking day, the Middle Eastern people, the only thing holding these fucking devils back from owning the entire fucking planet. Those Arab people that y'all talk shit about, they're the only thing holding back the fucking devil to this day. Keep that in mind before you talk shit about those fucking people. They're getting bombed for shit they never created. And then your government creates ISIS and all this shit. Just like they created Islam to try and divide them off from their Shemitic gods. They got them worshiping Marduk and their fucking god instead of their real god. You know? Their gods, plural, right? The Elohim that really created everything. Right? That are the reason that Egypt was even able to get through the famine that Anu and the guys had put against them. That just like the Sumerians were able to survive the flood because the intervention of the gods on the behalf of a holy man that you called Noah, but he was really the high priest. You know, obviously, the same type of person that interceded for Egypt to keep them from having their issues, see? It's a monsoon that happens between my brother's birthday month, late May, and August, my birthday month, which is early in the month, the 7th. When I first started learning about this stuff yesterday. Enormous precipitation because of the great power between me and my twin. Remember the twins, May, Gemini? My brother was, you know, people when we were young, they thought we were twins. Like, for real. He looked more like Stephen Curry, though. I look more Ethiopian, though. He had, like, the green eyes like my mother. And blonde hair when he was young, and then it turned brown. And I've always just been really pretty damn, you know, tan, like an Arab person. Very, very tan. And brown, dark brown eyes, you know, like that. Really light brown, kind of. Dark brown hair. Looks red. Sometimes looks blue sometimes. My mom's eyes will change colors too. But anyway, so the flooding in the Nile, this flood between our months. And most of the rainwater is taken to the Blue Nile. I was telling you about blue, right? And after the Radiant River into the Nile. While less important amount of flows through the White Nile into the Nile during this short period. Let me turn on the light. Give me a second. I gotta pause. Yeah, the point is flooding and stuff like that. Like happens over and over and over again. And then of course they have their mythologies about the one that's like Noah. All the countries do. And they even like, remember how like in Egyptian creationism, it was like all this stuff that's basically Sumerian. They basically got most of the teachings in Egypt are from Sumeria. Honest to God, like the primordial, all that stuff. A lot of it's Babylonian, but still very advanced. Because I'm pretty sure, just like with Sumeria and its Babylonian influences that are inescapable to this day because of how uprooted the original traditions were by Babylon over the years. But it's not it's not too hard to get the general idea of what it was. If the same thing happened in Egypt, I'm pretty much sure of it. And that's why you got all these blendings of like traditions and stuff. It comes with, it's like history, you know? Like when someone conquers a great civilization, they try and rewrite it to make it look like it's theirs. It's just like when the Romans took Israel and, you know, Jesus passed on to become the Holy Spirit and, you know, at the right hand of God and all that. And then what happened? Then the Romans, they started acting like they were what? The Israelites. You know, they started to become the popes and all that stuff. When the Bible calls them the synagogue of Satan. It's the same thing in Samaria. That's why Abraham came out of Samaria. It was fallen when he left, though. It was called Babylon. That's why it calls, you know, he says it's going to be a new Babylon. That's America. America used to be Christian in some ways, you know what I mean? And now it's just really getting even worse, you know, like really far away from Christianity, you know? Even the Native Americans were doing a type of worship of the gods here, you know, with their temples and stuff that you call pyramids that they have built here. And the way they're working with nature so naturally. But you see, they got these primordial 8. It's basically just like Noah's family, you know. You can look at this yourself. I'm not trying to be in here too long. I'm trying to make my certain points. The point I was trying to make about this one is just basically there's floods all over the place. That's it. Keep looking at it as you want. This is like connections between them. Like all the ones, guys, every culture had a tradition of a global flood. Dr. John Morris described his collection and analysis of more than 200 accounts of the flood. Remember, God said, have 2 witnesses to know something is true? Well, he got you 2 witnesses times 100, you know, 200. He overkilled it, you know. Originally reported by missionaries, anthropologists, and ethnologists. He wrote, while the differences are not always trivial, the common essence of the stories is intrinsic. 88%, is there a favorite family? Were they forewarned? 66%. Is the flood due to wickedness of mankind? 66%. Is the catastrophe only a flood? 95%. Was the flood global? 95%. Is the survival due to a boat? 70%. So what are the other ones you might want to ask? I think it's the pyramids. You know, pyramids, like, you ever heard of salt pyramids? They float. They float. I wouldn't be surprised, man. I'm telling you. But were animals also saved? 67%. Did animals play any part? 73%. Did survivors land on mountains? On a mountain? 57%. Was the geography local? 82%. Were birds sent out? 35%. Yeah, that part is like, I don't know. You know why the bird is brought up and it's not going to get that? It's because, for example, in the Sumerian one, there's the god of the sky who's like a bird, who basically let them know that they were safe to return to the earth. A lot of this is like they're not getting that it's actually more stuff in common than they know. Like that bird one is actually way higher than 35%. They're not understanding like the Sumerian one, and all the other ones that are similar to it, which is a lot of these, is actually talking about a type of bird. Was the rainbow mentioned? That's actually very rare. It's only in the Bible, and that's 7%. Did survivors offer a sacrifice? That's actually in all of them. They're lying about this. That's pretty much in all of them. Big time. I'm going to show you that in Samaria. Like they made, because they try and like, when you look up the creation story, they give you the wrong one. I found the actual one. I found the source, tablet, all of it. Did the survivors offer a sacrifice? It's actually 75% at least. Where specifically 8 persons saved. That's way higher than 9%. Way higher. But actually, they're right about that. Because that's mostly in the Bible, in the Egyptian parallel. But I'm not sure if the person who did the study is seeing it like the person that's quoting the study. You see, this guy, he's the one who understands it a little deeper, I think, that's making this whole text document right here. He's only quoting this guy that's giving these numbers, you see. He's quoting him, you see. He's got more of his own arguments. I know there's more in here, but it's all over the planet, man. That's the point of that. You don't know that, that's too bad, you know. You're not gonna get 100% of people talking about it, I don't think. Fossil, okay, evidence appeared. Researchers of fossil evidence suggested that were submerged underwater, you see. This video is about this as well. I mean, look, remember I told you about the sand? How it's impossible to have it unless it's like been under an ocean, or it had been like the shore of a giant ocean. Remember, it didn't used to be like a desert there. It used to actually, they know this, it used to be a lot of like lush vegetation and water, you know. And at some point it was submerged. It's clear because of the erosion. And there's fossils that are like fused into it. Guess I don't know how to spell that properly, okay. What's the part where it says erosion? Yeah, damage and erosion. And then they're actually finding fossils and all that. And guess that's the other way you can affect. If it was sandstone, I don't believe it was. I believe it was mud. And you know, when you get all that mud itself can turn into limestone with pressure. You don't need any kind of fossils and stuff, which make just the fossils make it even easier. That's why the outer part was so really polished and like a really strong limestone kind of veneer, like casing. In most of these pyramids, the other ones are mud. And then, like I said, the more ancient ones that were under pressure for longer and having more of these floods occur, that happen all the time. And, you know, were the source of all these things. That the other way they could have built it was simply just building, like I'll show you. Where does it say that? That's not that one. Is this one? Yeah. Most pyramids built then were little more than mountains of mud brick, encased in a veneer of polished limestone. You see, the limestone was easy to get there because all the fossils that would come flood onto the thing every year, or simply because they polished them out of mountains. They constructed them out of mountains, and maybe put some limestone as like an outer casing. Like I was looking at a pyramid that they brought up in the Kemet group, and it literally had an outer layer of the stony-like structure, and then the inner part was just literally mud that had been, you know, turned into like a type of stone because it was, you know, dried in the sun. They obviously did it in layers, and that's why they look like stones, because they're just layers. It's just so hilarious that people still wonder about this, in my opinion. built the pyramids concrete blocks rather than hauling up stones. It's research by material scientists adds fuel to the theory, skilled enough to handcraft 2-ton despite mounting support. Carved and weird requires huge holes. That's really crap. It couldn't have been invented at the time. Yeah, that's right. Until recently, it was hard for geologists to distinguish between natural limestone and the kind that would be made by reconstructing liquefied lime. But according to, they basically talk about it as liquefied lime. The pair used X-rays, a plasma torch, and electron microscopes to compare the small fragments from the pyramids with stone. They found that the traces of rapid chemical reaction, which did not allow natural crystallization. The reaction would be inexplicable if the stones were quarried, formed. If they were formed naturally, it's more likely that they were, created from a type of cement. But perfectly comprehensible if one expects that they were cast from a concrete. You see, they were made from a concrete. That's why you get this kind of formation. It didn't have the natural crystallization that you get in naturally formed some kind of liquefied limestone. There's a million ways that they say this could have been done. The pair believed that the concrete method was used only for the stones on the higher levels of the pyramids. There are some 2.5 billion stone blocks on the Cheops pyramid. The 10-ton granite blocks at their heart were also natural, they say. The professors agree that soft limestone quarried on the rim. This was then dissolved in large, now fed pools until it became a watery slurry. Lime, or fireplace ash, and salt were mixed into it. So that's where the salt came from. I was thinking that it was because it was underwater, along with the fossils and all that stuff would be a factor. Because why else would salt be in it, And water evaporated, leaving a moist clay-like mixture. This wet concrete would have been carried to the site and packed into wooden mounds, where it would set hard in a few days. Mr. Diagenesis and his team at the Geopolymer Institute at St. Quentin tested the method recently, producing a large block of concrete limestone in 10 days. You see? It's repeatable. What's the definition of science, sir? And what's the truth? You can repeat it, right? He literally repeated the pyramids. But if you were to go into a mountain and build it the other way that's possible, by going into a type of mountain and then carving it out of the part that's limestone from pressure, obviously from all the flooding from Ethiopia and stuff. And that's why it's so different from everywhere else, because of the ants, everything came from this location, according to all the cultures. It's like the Garden of Eden, it's like Pangea, where all these other people came from and all this crazy stuff. If that's the case, well, yeah, there you go. Makes sense. And they know this place is constantly getting flooded with mud and all, yeah. Only difference is it's so crazy that it could actually create, limestone deposits that they could carve stuff out of. It's the only other way it could have been done. That's why there's so few of them that are purely limestone. Most of them are mud. Like he said, it's like most of them are mud with a veneer of limestone, polished limestone, that is no longer there. Remember, because of the flooding and looting, the limestone is no longer, like, it would look purely white with the limestone, but it's gone now. So that's how they made it. Construction was spanned only a handful of months, basic structures. Other more complex pyramids would require more because they use more than just soil. You know, they might use something like limestone. They might use something like the other things we've seen used, you know. But they're using these mud for the most part. But they could mix it with other things, and then you get these type of concrete mixtures and stuff. So people basically think that the Egyptians are so advanced because they basically came up with a type of concrete. So, like, let me show you. It's the earlier ones, and then the later ones are the veneer. The earliest ones were basically whole stone, you see. These are the ones that they created with cement that was mixed with limestone. Okay, they're higher quality, and all that other stuff is bull crap, right? These are the ones that the guy that was worshiping the gods created, because, you know, he was in contact with the gods, so they were teaching him all kinds of stuff and blessing this guy, you know. During the Middle Kingdom, it's basically Joseph in the Bible. During the Middle Kingdom, the pyramid construction techniques changed again. Most pyramids built then were little more than mountains. I told you they formed it out of mountains, right? Of mud brick, encased in a veneer, but also they could have constructed these mud mountains in layers and sun-dried them, you see, encased in a veneer of polished limestone. In several cases, later pyramids were built on top of natural hills, you see. So that proves that they were doing that as well, making it out of the hills or putting on top of a hill to further reduce the volume of material needed in their construction. The materials and methods of construction used in the earliest pyramids have ensured their survival in a generally much better state of preservation than the ones made by later pharaohs. Stone forming in the core pyramids were roughly cut. And then the geopolymer, see, they're bringing it up. Not carved stone, they're mostly formed from a limestone concrete, see? They know about this. And that were cast as a modern concrete. According to this hypothesis, the soft limestone with a high kaolinite content was quarried in Wadi. They're thinking it's quarried or whatever, and then they basically fed in the pools until it became watery and slurry slime found in the ash of cooking fires at Natron. So that's evidence that they did it. Also used by Egyptians in mummification were mixed in. It's like a preservative. The pools were then left to evaporate, leaving behind a moist clay-like mixture. This wet concrete would be carried to the construction site, where it would be packed into reusable wooden mounds, and in a few days would undergo a chemical reaction similar to the curing of concrete. New blocks, he suggests, could be cast in place on top and pressed against the old blocks. Proof of concept tests using similar compounds were carried out with Geopolymer Institute in France, and found that a few of 5 to 10 working with simple hand tools could agglomerate a structure of 1.3 to 4.5 ton blocks in a couple of weeks. He also claims that the famine is still among, remember the famine? That's when they first started creating them, like in Imhotep, basically Joseph learned this from a dream with, from worshiping the gods. And that's what these pyramids are for. They're to worship the gods. They keep things running properly. And they're built on specific locations you call the ley lines, but they call them blessed locations, along with other hieroglyphic texts describe the technology of stone agglomeration. So actually the famine of steel, I didn't know this. I have to look into this and make another part to this, because it's already very long. But the famine of steel, basically that's the story of how, the guy first, he had the dream and he made the pyramids and all that. Actually, he says that simply the god decided to, make the waters run again instead of being dried up and stuff like that. Instead of it being a famine due to a drought, that he would make the waters run again. Because even when they get flooded, they're happy because it brings life to their area. And then that god did that. It wasn't really the pyramids, but it could have been the pyramids are related because they're how they worship them. That's where it is everywhere, They create these cities and these temples, and it's for the gods. That's why you have all these pictures of godlike beings or pharaohs. They're like it's like I told you, the high priest for the gods, the intermediary like Jesus was, the king. That's basically what that's about. Method is not accepted. Academia is method is not accepted. Stones weighing well over 10 tons. The king's chamber. She agreed were carved. Geologist. That could have easily been something that they transported there. And then put it in the middle. And then just built it the way they normally do. It's just like saying the side of a concrete building, how could you move? How big was it? 10 tons? That's not that heavy. Like, 10 tons? We got trucks that move that kind of stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure that was like probably the centerpiece of the whole thing, I mean, it's the king's chamber. I'm pretty sure that's where it's located. Geologists have crudely described this just to complete concrete, naturalized equipment. It's bullcrap. It's just look at the rest of the planet, man. It's not hard to figure out. They were all doing the same thing. They were building in layers. And I told you already that it could have been made out of mud, and then pressure could have created. Watch, I'm gonna explain this. I have to put this in 2 parts. So. It doesn't remember what I just asked it. Alright, I'll go back. Okay, here we go. Mud pyramids under enough pressure can become limestone pyramids? Yes, this is correct. This is the whole nother thing that I thought of that they don't even have in Wikipedia. But somebody else actually thought of it. The mud pyramids could become limestone because it happens naturally due to the weight of the pyramid. Like any of them that were mud could have easily turned up to limestone if they're big enough. What's the difference between the American ones and the ones in Egypt? The size. The ones in Egypt that are mostly lime are the biggest ones. So the pressure, you'll hear it. You'll say it. Limestone pyramids under enough pressure. The mud pyramids can become limestone pyramids under enough pressure. The mud used to build the pyramids was not just ordinary mud, but a type of limestone that was easily disaggravated with water. This limestone mud was then mixed with lime and other materials to form a geopolymer cement, you see? It's mud in limestone. Give me a sec, I gotta pause. Yeah, I'm in my backyard, I got mosquitoes. Hey. They're quite annoying. But yeah, I was right. And yeah, it's basically mud and that. The cement hardened over time under pressure, you see? That's why they call it accretion layers. When he said that's how they theorized that they built it. I don't even know if they theorized that that was it. I think it was actually as a part of the description. Remember it said inside of the description of that? I mean, I've already paused the video. I might as well look that up, right? I'm just going to assume it was. I don't want to have to go through all that work. Because it's translations, it's going to be all that kind of stuff. But you know, I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm too good at this, bro. I'm far too good at this. I want to do a deeper study in this, but I'm going to do that later. Like I said, it's already long. It confirms what I thought. And that's the point of it. Remember, they quoted the very first guy that, you know, like created the pyramids, you know, Imhotep and Dozer, right? Remember, people were saying that he learned how to create the pyramids to save them from the famine and all this kind of stuff, right? But also he talked to a god, and the god started, the god told him he would stop the drought, and you know, he'd make it rain and they would have food again, right? Remember, I told you he taught him how to create a pyramid, but I couldn't find it at that time, right? Remember that? Because I was using the wrong words and stuff. I was trying to say it was like a grain silo or something like that. When in reality, which I realized later, and I told you in the comment, and I told you at the beginning of this video, this is all about worshiping the gods. That's what the temples are, that's what the pyramids are for. They've been telling them this whole time, and they just wouldn't believe them. He literally gives them instructions how to create the pyramids. For what reason to create the pyramids? Why did the god have him create the pyramids? To worship that god. It's literally like his name sounds just like the god of Sumeria. It's a very similar name. Basically, I believe it was Enki. Yeah, Enki was the primary god. Sometimes, like, I don't know, sometimes they switch it up with Enlil, but I'm pretty sure it was Enki. Enki's always been on the side of humanity, no matter what version of the story you get. But it was really about Enki, not his son. And yeah, he was basically the king. And that's why he was given the first city ever. It was basically based around him. I'll get to that in a sec, though. So it's claimed that records exist. They claim there's no records, right, which describe how the pyramids were built. That's bullcrap, though. A stone stela engraved on a rock at the island at Elephantine, Egypt, north of Aswan, was discovered and deciphered. That's my last name, Morgan. Oh, that's so crazy because you take the 9 and switch it with the 8. That's like pretty much when I was conceptualized too. That is no coincidence. Guys in for a line. And the stela features 3 of the most renowned characters of the Egyptian civilization. Pharaoh Dozer, or Zoser, who built the first pyramid, the Step pyramid and monument is claimed to illustrate the invention of building with stone. Imhotep, the scribe and architect of Zoser's pyramid, who has been honored and deified for having invented the building with stone. And then the God that he worshipped this information. It's just like in the Bible, the porter who, as in the Bible, is fashioning the bodies of humans and gods. Yeah, it's they don't give that credit really to Enki. It's actually Anu, but Enki is his son, so it's kind of similar. And then they create lesser gods, like all these lesser gods. It's like 4 of them to begin with. The Elohim, the primary, Anu, and his 2 sons, Enlil and Enki, and then basically, I forget whose concubine it is. I'm pretty sure it was Anu's concubine, basically the mother. It's just like that in my family. It's so fun. And it's just like with Adam. It's the 2 twin brothers, and then like me and my older brother. So let me see, the parents or whatever. Yeah, he definitely was a king, and I'll tell you that. Even though he's not dark skinned, he was a king. He was a spirit, I will tell you. That's why he's not here to this day, because the gods did not favor his evil actions. He left this world at a very young age. So, and then, yeah, they built the stuff, and then he was the potter, like a creation of like cement, like potter and clay, mud, who has an about fashioned bodies and humans of gods, while the Nile silk, with the Nile silk, with the clay, in other words, possessing minerals, called the famine city. It was engraved during a recent epoch under the Ptolemies 200 BC, but certain reliable clues have led Egyptologists to believe that in an amplified form it had already become an authentic document by the beginning of the Old Kingdom, 2750 BC. Yet the most controversial aspect of this text is what I really want you to get, resides in the fact that to build these temples and pyramids and other sacred buildings, you see, temples, and to build temples, you see, that's the first one they give you, temples. That's what the pyramids are too. And other sacred buildings, Nun's instructions, and Imhotep's revelations do not mention any constructional stone. They didn't use big, giant, hulking pieces of limestone. That's impossible. Such as the limestone or sandstone or granite blocks. You see? So it wasn't the sandstone either. It was this, like I told you, that doesn't explain how it ends up with this. It doesn't have this crystalline structure that would happen if it was a stone. Instead, it's like the cement type of stuff made out of materials, what was the other word he called it? Processing minerals and stuff like that, like elements, like limestone is a mineral, mud is a mineral, and he even says it's like a potter and he makes things out of clay, aka mud, you see. He just took some mud, mixed it with that, and that's it. Simple. Canune is living minerals, and since former times nobody ever worked with them to build the temples of the gods. You see? Nobody in the other kingdoms, not even Samaria, built shit like this. That's why God said in the Bible that he's gonna make a great sign. You see? And he did. And it's just in the glory of the gods. That's why it points to where the gods are in heaven and all that. To build monuments, Dozer was given the list of minerals and ores. Minerals and what? Ores? Minerals, oh, okay. With hieroglyphic names have not been translated so far. Gee, I wonder, could one be limestone and the other, mud and maybe some other things that they have? And, the guys that there's people that have redone it. You know, they repeated it like science is repeatable. They basically used ores and minerals and stuff to do it. Gee, I wonder. I know limestone was one of them. We already went through it, but I'm sure the other stuff's in there as well. This is the reason why we started an in-depth study of each hieroglyphic word in order to determine the technical keywords, those which are difficult to translate. See? Let me add this to my favorites. Because that's so powerful, bro. That's so powerful. I hope y'all get what you just saw. Because it's clear. It's clear as day how they are built now. And even the AI knows about it. Like I said, yes, you're correct. Limestone mud was mixed with lime and other materials to form the geopolymer cement. The cement hardened over time under pressure, forming strong limestone blocks. The weight of the pyramid itself, without an ocean, or without a Noah's flood, without the constant floods and the extra biological stuff that would make it even more limestone. The pressure of the pyramid itself, aka accretion, accretion layers, would help to pressurize the blocks and solidify the cement. This process is called, this is something even, they didn't have another Wikipedia. This is something I discovered and I'm sharing with y'all. But it has a word that nobody in any of the Wikipedias has brought up. That's how deep I go. Yeah. Because I really try to understand things. And when you understand things, you figure out the truth. Diagenesis. Oh, Genesis? Literally, I'm about to go into the Genesis. Like the true Genesis. A redo Genesis. A redo Genesis. I can't make this up. Like, a redo Genesis. This is the earliest. They try and say the one of Marduk in Babylon is the earliest. But if you do your research, the AI fucked up and showed me a redo Genesis. The other one's not called Genesis. It's Enuma Elish. This is the one of the Babylonians. You see, the Sumerian, they were with the Eridu. This is why the first city ever created that was dedicated to the most important god in the actual war that happened in heaven and in the spaceless timelessness before everything, and that won it for the gods, the true goat. His name really isn't even Enki, that's what they call him, but he has another name, and I believe his name is actually Eridu, because they named the cities after the person, the god, most of the time. You know what I mean? So I think that's his actual name. And then you get things kind of bastardized by Babylon and all that. That's why I say it's kind of impossible to know their actual perfected names. But just like I can call on Jesus Christ, even though there's no J in the Hebrew language, God is intelligent. He knows who you're talking about, So I was able to ward off demons and stuff people think it's just in movies, like just in video games, just in the Doomslayer, just like in Bleach, just in this and that, right? But I really been there, done that, brother. Strong in the spirit, weak in the flesh. Remember that. Gods in the spirit, servants in the flesh. But that's why they, like I said, they're so excited about me. This outpouring of the Spirit is like the ultimate praise to God. And this is why the temple and the presence of God is going to be again on earth. Because there's a new God, just like Enki was able to make the kingdom of heaven come to earth. And this is why they get this idea of material forms of God. Because it brings it down to the kingdom of earth. Because you have to have basically a God man, like the Son of Man, like Enki was, really. I believe he was. How else he bringing it down to earth, Because the gods are in the sky. See, that's why he's like the god of the earth, and waters, and all this type of stuff. He's a king, king of war, king of the gods. Who's the king of the gods? He's the most important thing to the gods, the greatest worshiper, and the greatest power for the gods. You know, that's what they're gonna praise. The thing that brings them the most power, the most praise. That's what our Holy Spirit does. That's how I told you I got my power. Just praising God in a way nobody else could. I did it in a whole brain type of way. But when you do that, you use 100% of your brain. You do it. Anyway, so stones and stuff. What am I doing? Oh, I got all the way over this. We've already explained this. You know that was built that way. And this is one of the gods. This is where they said he was set up. Is in eastern Saudi Arabia. That's perfect. I can segue right into this now. I see this perfect. Because you already understand how it was built. I've already explained it to you a million times now. I've realized it's perfect segue. But I'm going to pause it here and make a new part, just in case. And then I'm going to fuse them together.